Hey there, I'm Anthony Romano, and I'm going to explain in this video 2 huge tips to make intermittent fasting or prolonged fasting way easier. Okay, so these are 2 very simple tips that you could use, and they're going to make, if you're somebody who's new to fasting, or perhaps even you've been doing it for a while, but you want to extend it, you can't get past a plateau, these are going to make everything so easy. So, for starters, you guys know I love keto. Keto is the #1 strategy to extend a fast. And side note, you can get your keto gains, scoop necked, classic text style keto gains shirts on my website. Check them out. Hopefully they're up by the time you're watching this video. So that's the first tip, but I'm not actually including that in the 2 strategies because these strategies work no matter what kind of diet you follow. So strategy #1, have your last meal of the day, so the meal before the fast, be one that is predominantly fat. So, and also make it one that is devoid of carbs. So even if you're somebody who's on a carb-based diet, don't have carbs in that last meal because that last meal is setting you up for the fast the next day. So if you have a carb meal, you're basically going to experience a blood sugar spike, which will probably, influence your sleep in some way. And if you wake up in the middle of the night too, that's probably when your blood sugar actually dipped. But having carbs in that last meal is going to basically give your body a blood glucose rise that once you get, lower on that blood glucose supply the next morning, that's when you're going to be hungry. So if you're trying to extend a fast, basically cutting out that carb meal the night before, just in regards to your last meal of the day, is going to minimize the possibility of you having a blood glucose drop in the morning. And at the same time, if you have a fat dominant meal at that time the night before, you're going to slow the release of blood glucose, slow the release of insulin, and basically give your body a slow burning but energy dense fuel that your brain loves using, by the way, especially in a fasted state. So what happens is, once you're in that fasted state and you've had your last meal of the day the night before, be one that's predominantly fat, right, like some cheese, fat and protein, whatever, or some fish, right? Fish is a great one for a lot of people. So you are going to have a slow burning energy and the absence of a blood sugar spike, which would then the next day cause you to be hungry once you ride the wave of that blood sugar spike. So essentially, having a carb meal the night before is going to basically put a timeline on your fast, because once that blood glucose dips the next morning, once you've made enough decisions, you've studied enough, you've done your work enough to the point where your blood glucose has dropped because you've used it as your willpower in the daytime. You can watch my willpower video on that too, because your willpower moment to moment is basically your blood sugar. And doing keto and fasting will stabilize that blood sugar, get you to have more willpower on a daily basis. Once you've ridden out that blood sugar spike, you are going to be hungry. Okay? It's as simple as that. So having fat the night before will make everything more stable, and basically lower volatility in your blood sugar means longer ability to fast and focus and just go throughout your day. Okay? So that is the first tip. Now the second tip is to start having your meals at the time you want to break your fast every single day. So what does that mean? That means basically if you normally have a 16-hour fast and you want to extend it to 18 hours, right? So let's say you normally have your first meal at 12 noon. Okay? Instead of having it at noon, if you want to push that till 2 p.m., 2 or 3 p.m., every day, start having that meal at 2 or 3 p.m. It'll be very hard the first day, but if you use tip #1, right, you'll find it easier to extend it in the first place. So you'll use tip #1, having fat as the last meal of the day, to make everything more stable. And then from there, if you know, hey, I want to hit 18 hours every day for my fat loss plan or whatever, or for my, therapeutic inflammation recovery fasting, whatever it may be, okay? If you can then start having that first meal at the desired time of day, so 3 p.m. let's say, your ghrelin's a hormone that makes you hungry, is going to start spiking every day at that time. All it takes is around 3 days for your body to readjust that ghrelin spike. So normally when you have ghrelin in the when people wake up in the morning, right, and that blood sugar drops after they've used it up, that's when ghrelin's going to jack up, because it's basically a response to low blood sugar saying, we're going to make you hungry, so you eat now. And funny thing is, a lot of people, you'll find, here's a question for you to prove the validity of this, that you probably eat most of your meals at the exact same time every day. If you're somebody who goes to school, if you're somebody who has a job that's, routine every day, you're probably finding yourself eating at the exact same times, no matter what you eat like. And that's because ghrelin is the hormone that actually makes you hungry. And if you understand that it's basically a timing, right? It's predominantly based on timing. It only takes 3 days to change that. Even people who get in the habits of eating every 3 days, there's people who fast 2 days and then eat one. People who do that, if they only eat on Monday and Thursday, they actually won't be hungry on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, Saturday. They'll actually only be hungry and get that ghrelin spike on those particular days of the week after they've done a routine like that for longer than 3 days. So, of course, it takes a while to set those things up for a longer fasting plan, but on a person who's eating every single day, just doing like an 18-hour fast every day, or longer than that, your ghrelin's going to spike at the same times every day, and all it takes is 3 days to fix that. So if you're doing a ketogenic diet, keep in mind, you're going to have a way easier time fasting anyways. But even if you're somebody who's intent on just extending the fast, you're already in a keto state, you're trying to lower your blood sugar, you're somebody who's on a carb diet and you're trying to fast longer, whatever it is, start having fats the last meal of the day, and that will set you up the next day to then fast a little bit longer, right? And from that state, you can then start trying to, after all it takes is 3 days of eating at your desired breakfast time, and then everything's easy, everything's clockwork, because after 3 days of doing that, right, besides the fact that you made it easy from tip number 1, you are now going to prime your body to say, oh, okay, we'll just release ghrelin at 3 p.m. every day. That's how it's going to work. Now, there are other tips too, like here's a free one: sodium and potassium, and even magnesium during a fast. Those, getting electrolytes in, will stabilize your insulin, which will make you less hungry. And essentially, sometimes when you think that you're hungry, it's actually just that you're thirsty because you're not hydrated, because you need electrolytes to keep you hydrated. So there's great books on this. The Salt Fix is one that I reference a lot by Dr. DiNicolantonio. Great book telling you about how salt can influence basically many of the hormonal processes in your body and how it's actually important. And it just gets a lot of flack because high sodium and high sugar foods are a problem when combined, but sodium on its own is not really a problem. So you also have to make sure you get sodium and potassium together, because if you supplement with just one electrolyte, you will deplete your stores of other electrolytes. So sodium, potassium, magnesium is the common, supplement, and I have that linked in the description as well. But those are 3 tips even, okay, to make fasting easier and to get a better ability to intermittent fast easily, especially even if you don't want to just, take my advice and just try keto. Because keto is hard at first for a lot of people, but fasting is a great way to kind of tiptoe your way into keto because they're the same state. So, side note, if you like intermittent fasting and you like the benefits from it, not only are the benefits 10 times more pronounced in a ketogenic diet, but you already like a ketogenic diet if you're doing fasting, because fasting is basically the exact same state as ketosis, okay? In fact, prolonged fasting, so fasting for longer than a day, is actually the true deepest form of ketosis. And if you start intermittent fasting, you're basically getting the baby brother of keto, and keto fasting for a long time is like the big guns, okay? So that is it for this video. Subscribe, like this video, follow my Instagram, check out my website, and download my free guides if they're here too. Peace.